Today, players like Trent Alexander-Arnold, Reece James, Danny Carvajal, Alphonso Davies, and many others are widely recognised as some of the best fullbacks in the world. Taken individually, they are completely different in terms of qualities, playing styles, and roles on the pitch. But there is one thing that unites them. Each of the four loves to be involved in their team's attack. But what if I told you that all these stars, and many more, owe their revolutionary style to a single nation? That nation is Brazil. From their heyday as a footballing powerhouse between the 1950s and 1970s to the golden generation of the late 20th and early 21st centuries, Brazil have always been associated with the nation that has done the most for the game. Indeed, it has been defined as the home of football and the most successful footballing nation. And one of the big changes Brazil have contributed to making the game more attractive and enjoyable to watch is the revolution in the fullback position. Back in the 30s and the 40s, the fullback role was considered to be very secondary out of the 11 on the pitch. The most fundamental positions were those of the goalkeeper, the centre-back duo, the midfielders and the striker. Yes, wingers and fullbacks were also important, but the focus wasn't there. Over the years, however, this has changed drastically. And if 70 years ago the fullback role was considered secondary, in the modern game it is unthinkable to field a team of 11 without at least one elite ball-playing fullback. So it is fair to say that the attacking fullback is crucial to the success of top clubs in the modern game. And before we move on to more recent times, let us trace the evolution of the role back to its deep roots. Back in 1958, Brazil won the World Cup for the first time. Yes, it was a huge achievement for a country where there isn't a single person who doesn't talk about football at least once a day. But the fact is that many forgot what was the main reason for Brazil's first major triumph. Most of the credit goes to the then 17-year-old Pelé, who was undoubtedly the sensation of the tournament. But Brazil's success wouldn't have been possible without the innovation at fullback that coach Vicente Viola introduced at the time. Until that iconic World Cup in Sweden, fullbacks were stationed deep in their own half, concentrating almost exclusively on marking opposition forwards and preventing crosses into the penalty area. Interestingly, they were actually the only defenders, as the most common formation used was the 2-3-5, also known as the WM formation. In this early 20th century period, every team emphasized a very clear division between defenders and attackers. The fullbacks acted as traditional defenders, providing a solid back line rather than contributing with attacking duties. Their position was extremely conservative, maintaining a defensive shape and staying deep in defense, not even crossing the halfway line of the pitch. However, with the 1958 World Cup approaching, Brazil manager Vicente Viola decided to make a bold decision. One that would prove to not only be hugely successful for the team, but also revolutionary for the game as a whole. It was a decision that was desperately needed, as prior to 1958, Brazil had failed to win the World Cup in all 5 editions. In 1958, Vicente Viola transformed the position of fullback from a purely defensive one to one that was integral to both defense and attack. Viola introduced the concept of overlapping fullbacks, allowing players such as Nilton Santos to come forward and support the attack. This tactical innovation gave Brazil extra width in offense, as the fullbacks could now join the midfield or even overlap on the wings to help create chances and maintain possession. Viola's decision completely changed the look of that iconic Brazilian team, which also included the names of Vava, Zagallo and Garrincha to play more centrally. This meant that Brazil had at least 4 players, Pelé, Vava, Garrincha and Zagallo, in the opposition's penalty area, as well as the support of 2 fullbacks who could cross the ball from the flank or recover possession. Viola's strategy emphasized both fluidity and versatility, with the 2 fullbacks switching seamlessly between defense and attack, improving Brazil's overall game. This shift played a fundamental role in Brazil's success, helping them win their first World Cup and setting a new standard for fullback play. Yes, the idea of overlapping fullbacks was first mooted in 1958, and it undoubtedly produced the desired result. But 12 years later, it was improved even further at the 1970 World Cup in Mexico. This time, it was right-back Carlos Alberto who took on the revolutionary role. As captain of that Brazilian team, Alberto not only exemplified leadership, but also demonstrated the improved approach to the fullback position. It's no surprise, of course, that the man who put Alberto in this new role was one of the heroes of 1958. attacking midfielder Mario Zagallo. Zagallo was Brazil's coach in 1970 and knew how to implement one of the most revolutionary changes in the history of the game. Alberto, on the other hand, was the perfect man to do the job. He was 26 at the time, had plenty of experience under his belt, and possessed the tactical intelligence and technical ability to master the position. His most memorable moment came at the best possible time, in the final against Italy. In the 86th minute, he scored one of the most iconic goals in World Cup history, one that epitomized the beautiful game for which Brazil were renowned. It was the culmination of a sublime team move and an individual masterclass. Pelé received the ball on the edge of the area, paused for a moment, looked to his right and saw the movement of Carlos Alberto coming forward from his right-back position. The captain received the ball and unleashed a powerful first-time shot into the bottom corner of the net. The goal not only sealed Brazil's 4-1 victory, but also highlighted the innovative role of the attacking fullback, something that had never been seen before in football. The difference in the development of the position between 1958 and 1970 was that during Brazil's first World Cup triumph, fullbacks were only involved in the attack to support the forward line. In the 1970s, this idea took on a whole new dimension, as the players who filled this role were literally all in on the attack. They had one job to do, and that was to score goals. On the other hand, the defence was also assured, as Brazil always had a defensive midfielder tucked in between the two centre-halves, whose responsibility was to block the opposition's counter-attacks. The biggest change to the role of fullback that we know of came in the 1990s, when arguably the two greatest fullbacks of all time began their careers. We're talking, of course, about the legendary duo of Cafu and Roberto Carlos. Cafu was the first of the pair to appear on the biggest stage, but interestingly, he never wanted to play as a fullback in the first place. The man who changed his mind was legendary coach Tele Santana. Cafu had many mentors in his career before meeting Santana in Sao Paulo in 1988. But none had been able to steer him in the right direction. Known as a pupil of the great Vicente Feola and Mario Zagallo, Tele Santana saw something special in Cafu. A blend of stamina, pace, and exceptional technical ability, combined with good defensive awareness. Yes, Cafu needed nothing more to become the next great Brazilian fullback, to take this fundamental position in football to the next level. When it comes to his performances for the national team, he is easily in the top 10 of the greatest Brazilians in the history of the game, especially when you look at his incredible statistics. Yeah, we are unlikely to see anyone break the incredible record he set between 1994 and 2002, when he became the first and only man to play in 3 consecutive World Cup finals. But when we talk about Cafu, we can't ignore the revolutionary new model he introduced while playing for Roma, Milan and Brazil. At the start of his career, before he even went to Europe, he had always wanted to play as a midfielder. As we have seen, the influence of Tele Santana changed his mind. But Cafu always remained true to the qualities of an elite playmaker that he learned in his youth. As such, he was the first notable name to introduce the idea of the inverted fullback. The characteristic of this type of fullback is that they move into the centre of the pitch when attacking, rather than staying wide on the touchline. This positioning helps them control the midfield, but more essentially to create numerical advantages in certain areas of the pitch. And well, Cafu made perfect use of his midfield qualities and was revolutionary in his own way. However, the player who completely transformed the idea of the fullback position is undoubtedly Roberto Carlos. A true freak of nature, Carlos shattered coaches' and pundits' perceptions of how the role should be played. He could easily be described as the Einstein of fullbacks, and most importantly, all theoretical guidelines and rules fell away when Roberto Carlos stepped onto the pitch. This was largely due to his monstrous physique, which allowed him to be the most enduring player on the pitch, playing 10 games a month, 52 weeks a year throughout his whole 25-year career. As well as his tremendous stamina and speed, which he used to be effective in both defense and attack, Carlos had another valuable quality that set him apart: his free kick ability. Over the course of his career, the Brazilian scored 49 free kicks and was remembered for a number of memorable moments, most notably his incredible curling strike against France in 1997. What is most impressive is that since his best years, which are considered to be between 1997 and 2007, no one has come close to matching his greatness. Yeah, there have been plenty of excellent attacking left-backs in those years, such as Jordi Alba, Marcelo, Andrew Robertson, Ashley Cole, Patrice Evra, and many others, but none have managed to surpass his legacy. And when we mention all these names, we can say without a doubt that Brazil can definitely be defined as the king nation at the fullback position. From the revolutionary attacking contributions of Nilton Santos and Carlos Alberto in the mid-20th century, to the dynamic roles of Roberto Carlos and Cafu in the 1990s and 2000s. Brazilian fullbacks have redefined the position, combining defensive duties with remarkable attacking ability. And what is your opinion? Do you think Brazil deserves the most credit for revolutionizing the fullback position, or is there another country that deserves its place in this conversation? Give your suggestions in the comments below, and also don't forget to like and subscribe, or just check out some of our latest uploads. Catch you in the next one, and see you on the pitch.